Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the world's most beautiful melodies, part 8. I mean, this series of chats could go on forever, but we'll probably stop around 10 for a while and see how far we've gotten, and then do more occasionally as melodies come up that you submit to me. But this is a particularly enjoyable talk for me because it is dedicated to one of possibly, no, let me see, one of, possibly the greatest melodist of the 20th century. Do you know who it is? Pause. Well, it's Francis Poulenc. Not only was he, I don't know, maybe the greatest songwriter after Schubert. I mean, really just an amazing, amazing melodist. And what makes Poulenc's melodies so special and so remarkable is, first of all, he operates almost entirely in little 2 and 4 bar phrases, which actually makes his tunes, I mean, very regular in some ways. I mean, they're quite singable. On the other hand, those 2 and 4 bar phrases can contain absolutely anything. Everything from sort of faux Mozart and classical music to cabaret music to the sexiest, sultriest. I mean, it's amazing what he packs into them. And he packs all of this stuff into them, but manages always to retain the flow. Even though they happen in rather rigid rhythmic groups, they never sound like they're written in rather rigid rhythmic groups. The melodies always spin themselves out, and he can spin them out phenomenally. And a wonderful example of that is the first tune that we're going to play, which I think was an absolutely inspired, sublime choice. I mean, an amazing, amazing choice. It comes to us from Esteban Lindo. And he writes, one of my personal favorites is the second movement from Poulenc's Clarinet Sonata. It is such an intimate moment filled with warmth and beauty, and every time I hear that melody, I simply close my eyes and allow myself to drift with the music. It is mesmerizing and poignant. I think that melody really shows the genius that was Poulenc and the wonderful magical capabilities he had as a composer. Well, Mr. Lindo, I could not agree more. I absolutely couldn't. And I have a wonderful performance of it here, which is part of the Naxos complete chamber music. This is a 5-disc series, which you really should have. If you don't, if you can find it, you can still get it. Because it features Alexandre Tarot, the pianist, who's amazing. And in this case, the clarinetist is Ronald van Speendonk. And this is just an exquisite performance. Here it is, the slow movement, or a bit of it, of the Poulenc Clarinet Sonata. it is haunting. It really is. It's absolutely marvelous. So thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Lindo. I love this music. And I've got actually three samples of Poulenc that we're going to hear. So there's plenty more where that came from. And you may have your own because, my God, could this guy churn out tunes. Absolutely fabulous. And Poulenc worked for sometimes for years, on a text, on a song, finding just the right melody. And he did work in these little 2 and 4 bar chunks, and then he would sort of assemble them somehow. Every composer has their own method, and there's really no way to systematize or calculate how they figure out or how they do what they do. And Poulenc's method was unique to him. But my, oh my, what amazing results. So here, next from João Freitas is his choice. He writes, I would like to nominate a great tune from the Concert Champêtre for harpsichord and orchestra, written by Poulenc in 1928. The second movement, the Andante, is a kind of Sicilian Baroque, a Baroque Sicilian, in that kind of rhythm, that chung, 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 that Siciliano rhythm, with a 20th century harmony, he writes, that always makes me smile. Well, me too, and it's going to make you smile as well. I guarantee it. This recording also is on Naxos. It's with the Orchestre Nationale de Lille, Jean-Claude Casadessus conducting, with Elizabeth, oh my God, Chojnacka. Yes, Chojnacka. Does that make sense? Harpsichord. Anyway, you can look at her name when I hold this thing up. Here is the central movement of the Concert Champêtre. And I may add, this is one of the few modern recordings of the work that's tolerable, because almost all of them use a harpsichord that's an authentic, like Baroque or small-scale classical style instrument, which is wrong. Poulenc wrote it for Wanda Landowska and her Pleyel harpsichord, which was effectively a grand piano in harpsichord style, and that actually had volume and could hold its own against the orchestra. And if you listen to the older recordings that Poulenc himself was around for, it's like Amy Van de Velde and whatnot, you hear a serious, hefty harpsichord. But since then, harpsichords have proliferated, but the wrong kind. And so recordings of this work often use teeny, tiny harpsichords that are mic'd artificially in order to balance them against the orchestra. And the result sounds absolutely terrible. Oh, there are so many bad recordings of this piece. But this is not one of them. Thank goodness. So here it is. And by the way, just to show you what Poulenc can sort of do with these melodies, I have inserted a little pause and given you 2 versions of the tune. The opening statement of the theme in a minor key and the major key variant accompanied by the harpsichord. And it's so wonderful, the transformation and mood that he gathers just by somehow transmogrifying these simple tunes. There's so much brilliance and genius and technique, and all of it is unanalyzable. You can never tell why melodies do what they do, which is why musicology usually deals with harmony and never asks the question of why a great tune affects us the way it does, or what makes it great, what makes it work within the context of the overall musical organism. It's such a wonderful mystery. So here we have the central movement of the Concert Champêtre. yummy, isn't it? I mean, Poulenc could move from like the sexiest, most evocative, sultry, smoky, lush, late chromatic romanticism to complete purity and innocence in a heartbeat, in 2 bars. He just does it. It's so wonderful. And finally, somebody who didn't contribute their names, so I can't credit them, and so I'm not going to read their contribution, but I'm going to play the music because I agree with it so much. It is the opening movement of Poulenc's Piano Concerto, a piece which is almost uniformly derided for not being serious enough or heavy-duty enough or formally sophisticated enough. It just has amazing tunes. And the opening tune of this piano concerto is absolutely one of the great melodies in the 20th century or of all time. It is unforgettable, incredible piece of music. And I've got a wonderful performance. Here's a disc that you probably may not have paid any attention to when it came out because it was sort of slid under the radar. It's a real sleeper. It features Florian Uhlig, piano, German pianist, and he's doing... It's a wonderful program. It's the Debussy Piano Fantasy, Poulenc's Piano Concerto, the Ravel Piano Concerto in G major, and Francais Concerto for Piano and Orchestra is in G major. No, it's the Concertino. Sorry about that. Jean Francais, the Concertino for Piano and Orchestra. I mean, this is an absolutely fantastically put together program, wonderfully played, and Uhlig is accompanied by the Deutsche Radio Philharmonie Saarbrücken Kaiserslautern. I mean, no wonder no one listens to that orchestra. You can't pronounce it. It's too long. These long, crazy names you get with these orchestras, they all merge and remerged and demerged. And when they did, the names get longer and longer and longer. The most famous one is the USSR Radio Large State Symphony Orchestra of the Moscow Radio and Television Collective Corporate Conglomeration Confabulation Philharmonic. I mean, they just, anyway, Europe in particular, because, when they merge these, they're all government institutions and they retain their names. It's nuts. Anyway, never mind me. Let's listen to the unbelievable, and this is a quick tune too, which is what's wonderful. It's not just slow and languishing. The opening of Poulenc's Piano Concerto. Melody to die for, isn't it? And, one of the things I really enjoy about these Poulenc melodies that we've heard is that, normally, I'm going through all your lists of selections and nominations, and most of them are for melodies that are characterized by a certain purity, a certain innocence, a freshness, and even a pastoral quality, a lot of them. And that's fine. I mean, that's perfectly fine. And there is something about that type of melody that instills in us a kind of nostalgia, a certain a certain, disarming quality that we just love to hear. And in innocence, it's beautiful, isn't it? But these are sexy. I mean, there's also a place in our life for music that really has a little bit of smarminess and sexiness and, sweat and, well, you know what I mean, right? It's just terrific because that's the kind of guy Poulenc was. And I just think these are three of the most exquisitely fabulous melodies of the 20th century. So thank you so much for all of the contributors who submitted melodies, and thank you all for listening. Keep on listening, folks, and take care.